Have you ever found yourself sitting by the phone waiting for a call that never comes? Maybe you text your children and the reply takes days or doesn't come at all. It's not that they don't love you. You raised them. You fed them, bathed them, stayed up late with them when they had a fever, cheered at every milestone. And now, as the years go by, there's this slow, quiet distance. It's confusing. It hurts. And maybe you've asked yourself, did I do something wrong? The truth is, sometimes that emotional distance isn't about what wasn't said. It's about what keeps being said, without us even realizing it. Words matter more than we think, especially when we speak to our adult children. At this stage of life, every conversation is an opportunity to either strengthen that bond or gently push it away. Today, we're going to talk about 5 phrases, common, often well-meaning phrases, that can slowly damage our most cherished relationships if we're not careful. Let's start with the first one. And I want you to stay with me, because if this sounds familiar, you are not alone. After everything I've done for you. It's a sentence that often slips out during moments of frustration or hurt. You might not even mean it as a guilt trip. Maybe you're just expressing how unappreciated you feel. You've poured your life into your children, financially, emotionally, physically. You were there. You sacrificed. And yet it can feel like they're too busy now to remember any of that. Nancy, a 72-year-old widow from Ohio, knows that feeling all too well. She told me about a dinner with her son that ended in silence. They were sitting across from each other at a restaurant she picked, his favorite growing up, and the conversation was dry. When she finally blurted out, "After everything I've done for you, the least you could do is answer my calls." Her son looked up and said quietly, "Mom, please stop making me feel like a debt I can't repay." That hit Nancy like a cold wind. And yet she's not alone. Many women in their 60s and 70s find themselves wanting more closeness with their children and using this phrase without realizing the damage it causes. It turns the unconditional love we gave into something transactional, as though the care we offered came with strings attached. But here's the beautiful truth. Parenting wasn't an investment for returns. It was a gift freely given out of love. Instead of saying, "After everything I've done for you," try this instead. "I really miss hearing your voice. Can we set up a regular time to talk? Maybe Sundays?" When you speak from the heart, with vulnerability instead of expectation, you open the door for your children to come toward you, not out of guilt, but out of love. And now, we move into something even more sensitive, something that has quietly severed more relationships than most of us realize. Your spouse is turning you against me. This one is tricky. Because let's face it, sometimes it does feel like everything changed once they got married. Maybe your daughter used to call every morning on her way to work, and now you're lucky to get a text once a week. Maybe your son used to visit every Sunday after church, but now his weekends are booked. It's easy to assume someone else is influencing them. That their spouse is whispering, "Don't call your mom so much," or "You don't owe your family anything." But the truth is often far more complicated and far less malicious. Let me tell you about Linda. She's 68, lives in Arizona, and always had a strong relationship with her son, until he got married. Suddenly she felt iced out. Her calls went unanswered. Her birthday went by with just a text. And she began to say things like, "I bet Rachel doesn't want you spending time with me," or "You were never like this before you got married." What Linda didn't know is that her son was sharing those comments with his wife, who in turn felt hurt and unwelcome. The tension built until, one day, at a family barbecue, Linda made a passing comment about losing her son to another woman. That night, her son sent her a message. "Mom, we need space. I love you, but I can't keep putting my marriage in the middle of this." That space turned into 18 months of silence. No holidays, No birthdays, no visits. And it broke Linda's heart. Eventually, through counseling and a long, tearful conversation, the relationship began to mend. But it didn't have to get that far. When you say, "Your spouse is turning you against me," you're not just accusing their partner, you're insulting your child's judgment. You're saying they don't have the strength to think for themselves. And no adult wants to feel infantilized by their parent, especially when they're building a life of their own. Instead, try this. "I love both of you so much. I'm still learning the best way to be supportive of your new life together. Can we find more ways to connect that work for everyone?" It may feel a little awkward at first, but it shows maturity. It shows respect. It tells your child, "I see you. I respect your choices. I still want to be close, on your terms." That level of trust, of letting go of control, can feel uncomfortable, even unfair. But here's the gift. When we release the pressure, we often create more space for closeness. No one wants to be told where their loyalty should lie, but everyone wants to be welcomed with open arms. You've made it this far with strength, grace, and love. And now it's time to build your relationships with even more wisdom. These phrases, though common, carry weight. And when we begin replacing them with words of compassion and clarity, the results can be powerful. Let's keep going. Now let's take a moment and breathe. If any of these examples have hit close to home so far, please know this: there is no blame here, just awareness. And from awareness comes the power to choose differently, to speak differently, to connect in a new way that draws your children closer, rather than unintentionally pushing them away. Let's keep moving forward. The next phrase is one you've probably heard, or maybe even said, without ever thinking it could hurt someone. "In my day, we did things differently." It sounds so harmless. A simple reflection, a little nostalgia. And truthfully, there's nothing wrong with sharing stories from the past. Your experience matters. It's valuable. But how we frame that experience can make all the difference between bonding and building walls. Think about this. Your daughter is juggling work, kids, and a house that always seems a little messy no matter how hard she tries. She mentions she's thinking about hiring a part-time nanny to help out. You respond, "In my day, we didn't need nannies. We just got on with it." To her, it doesn't sound like wisdom. It sounds like judgment. As if her struggle isn't valid. As if she's just not strong enough. And that hurts. George, a 74-year-old grandfather from Tennessee, used to say that kind of thing all the time, especially around his daughter, who had 2 young children and a demanding job. When he saw her putting safety latches on every drawer, he'd chuckle and say, "Back in my day, we didn't baby-proof everything. We just paid attention." He meant it as a light-hearted comment. But over time, his daughter stopped asking for help. She stopped talking about her parenting struggles. Because instead of feeling supported, she felt small, like she was doing it all wrong. When George realized this, it stung. But he also saw an opportunity to do better. He started asking questions instead of making comparisons. When his daughter mentioned something new she was trying with the kids, he'd say, "That's interesting. I've never heard of that. Tell me more." And just like that, the wall came down. She began to open up again. She started to ask him what worked when he was raising kids, and together, they found common ground. If you've ever felt tempted to say, "In my day," stop for a second. Instead, try something like, "That's a really different approach than what I remember. I'd love to hear how it's working for you." That one sentence opens the door to mutual respect. It tells your child, "I see you. I'm not here to compete. I'm here to connect." Because connection is what we're really after, isn't it? That brings us to another phrase that sounds innocent, but can cut deep when it's heard too often. You never visit or call me. This one is especially painful because it comes from loneliness. And that's something no one talks about enough. Being in your 60s or 70s can feel like standing on the shore, watching everyone else rush through their busy lives, jobs, kids, deadlines. And you're just waiting for a knock at the door, waiting for your name to show up on the caller ID, waiting to feel remembered. So when the moment finally comes and your child walks in or picks up the phone, it's easy to let that pain spill out. You never call anymore. I haven't seen you in ages. And it's understandable. But here's the hard truth. Those words don't make them want to call more. They make them dread the call. Susan, a 70-year-old from Chicago, was deeply close to her daughter growing up. They talked every day when her daughter was in college. But now her daughter has 2 kids and a full-time job, and the calls have become shorter and less frequent. Susan found herself saying, "You never call me anymore," even though they spoke just last week. Over time, her daughter began to pull away, not because she didn't love her, but because every conversation left her feeling like she wasn't doing enough, like nothing she did could ever meet her mother's expectations. And that's an exhausting place to be. Everything changed for Susan when a friend suggested she keep a little calendar on the fridge, just a simple log of every time she heard from her daughter. Texts, calls, visits. She was shocked to see how often they actually connected. The problem wasn't her daughter's effort, it was Susan's perception. So she made a change. Instead of saying, "You never call," she started saying, "I really enjoyed our talk last Thursday. It made my week." And slowly, the energy between them shifted. The guilt dissolved. The connection grew stronger. If you're feeling forgotten or lonely, you're not alone. But instead of expressing that hurt through accusations, try sharing it through hope. Say, "I've been missing you lately and would love to set up a regular time to catch up. What day works best for you?" That simple shift makes a world of difference. It lets your child know you value their time, their effort, and their life. And that's when they start showing up, not because they feel guilty, but because they want to. There's something deeply empowering about recognizing our role in the relationships we care about most. We may not be able to control how often our children call or how busy their schedules are, but we can control the energy we bring into every conversation, the tone we set, the stories we tell ourselves and them. You have so much wisdom, warmth, and love to give. And when that comes without conditions or comparison, it's irresistible. Let's keep going. Sometimes, when we've tried everything else, being patient, being kind, even biting our tongues, we reach for the one card we think will finally make them pay attention. The one phrase we believe will snap them out of their busy lives and make them realize how much we matter. "You'll regret it when I'm gone." It's raw. It's honest. It comes from a deep ache, the fear of being forgotten, of becoming invisible, of spending the last chapters of life in silence. But as powerful as this phrase may feel in the moment, it doesn't create closeness. It creates fear, and guilt, and distance. Walter, a 78-year-old retired teacher from Colorado, used to say it all the time. His children would skip a holiday dinner or reschedule a visit, and he'd respond with, "Someday I won't be here, and you'll wish you'd spent more time with me." He said it with tears in his eyes, believing he was speaking from truth. And in a way, he was. But what he didn't realize was that his children began to dread interactions with him, not because they didn't love him, but because they couldn't handle the emotional weight. It felt like every conversation carried the shadow of loss. And eventually, those conversations happened less and less. The turning point came when his oldest son finally said, "Dad, I don't want our time together to feel like a countdown clock. I want to enjoy you while you're here. But I need that time to feel light, loving, not filled with guilt." It was a wake-up call for Walter. He realized that he had been trying to hold on tighter by using fear, and it was pushing his family further away. Through support and honest reflection, he began to change the way he expressed his need for connection. Instead of saying, "You'll regret it when I'm gone," he began saying things like, "These moments mean the world to me. I'd love to make more memories with you." That one sentence changed everything, because it centered on the now. It invited joy, not sorrow. And when the energy changed, so did the response. His children began visiting more, calling more, not out of obligation, but because the experience was filled with warmth. That's the key, isn't it? Our children don't want to feel like they're on trial every time they speak to us. They want to feel welcomed, loved, safe. And that safety is something we can create with the words we choose, even if those words take effort at first. I know it's not easy. Changing how we speak, how we respond, how we reach for connection, it takes intention, especially when we've been carrying the same habits for decades. But it is possible. And even more than that, it's powerful. Margaret, a 75-year-old grandmother from North Carolina, once told me she felt like her children were emotionally checking out. Every phone call was short, every text dry. She worried she'd done something wrong, but didn't know how to fix it. Until one day, her youngest daughter said, gently but firmly, "Mom, it's hard to talk to you because I always feel like I'm letting you down." That moment shattered Margaret. But it also gave her something most people never get: clarity. And instead of becoming defensive, she got curious. She asked her daughter to help her understand what felt heavy in their conversations. Then, she committed to change, not just in theory, but in practice. She stopped using phrases like, "you never," or "I guess I don't matter." She began speaking with gratitude. She started ending each call with a positive word, not guilt, but love. And slowly, the walls began to fall. 6 months later, her daughter surprised her with a weekend trip. Just the two of them. Something that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. When I asked Margaret what changed, she said this: "It wasn't that my kids didn't love me. They just couldn't handle the emotional burden I was unknowingly placing on them. Once I let that go, love had room to come in again." And that's the heart of it all, isn't it? Your words have weight. They carry energy. And when we choose that energy carefully, with kindness, with curiosity, with courage, we create the kind of relationships we've always longed for. Not just polite conversations, but real connection. The kind that warms your heart days after the phone call ends. So, what can you do next? Start by noticing. Just notice the phrases you tend to reach for when you feel lonely, frustrated, or hurt. Ask yourself, is this building a bridge, or is it building a wall? And then, gently, without judgment, try something different. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. Willing to speak from love instead of fear. Willing to reach out with hope instead of pressure. Willing to believe that connection is still possible, even if it hasn't looked the way you imagined. Your children want to feel close to you. They want to laugh with you. They want to feel safe in your presence. And when you give them that gift, by choosing your words with care, they will come back. Maybe slowly. Maybe cautiously. But they will come. And you'll both be better for it. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever caught yourself using one of these phrases? Or noticed how your tone changed a conversation with your child? Let's talk about it in the comments. You're not alone in this. And if you found this video helpful, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps more women like you find this message. Subscribe to Strong Elderly Life if you haven't already, because we've got so many more conversations that can help you feel empowered, connected, and strong in this beautiful stage of life. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are a light in your family, even if they don't always say it. And when you speak from love, that light only shines brighter. Here's to living fully, loving freely, and speaking with the kind of grace that opens hearts. You've got this.